All right, so we're back here at school. I've got the panel set up here where I'm going to start doing my spraying. First thing I did was once we got here, it's a little hot out today, so a lot of the tape wants to start peeling up and shrinking. So just go over it real good, make sure everything's pressed down. I had to come in and add a little bit of tape to fill up a gap because the tape shrunk. So once everything's fixed, everything looks good, we're going to come in and we're going to do a little bit of papering. So basically what I want to do is whatever one I'm going to start on first, I want to isolate that and mask off everything else so we don't get overspray from the paint everywhere else. I just want it to be on this little corner. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, just with the paper machine, just take some 6-inch paper. And what I'm doing is I'm just laying it on the thick orange line, not the thin one. All right, and what I do is when I lay it down there, I split so I'm covering up half of the orange tape, so half is covered and half is exposed. And then for this area, I'm going to go with a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go with 12-inch paper. And again, just right on the middle of that orange tape. We'll cover up this little corner over here, just a little insurance. And then these two little sections here. Now everything's covered. Now I want to come back though. There's a little gap right there. I want to make sure I get filled in. But then the other thing is all these loose pieces of paper, right? As soon as we start spraying, all this is going to want to come in and land on what we're painting, right? So some of it we can just tuck under. So just tuck those under. That way the panel holds it down. Okay. And then we're just left with these two little loose ends. So I'll come in, I'm just going to seal it up. Okay, now when we're doing a car, when we're masking up cars, we want to make sure that we do this. And the reason for doing all the sealing up is that we're trying to keep two things from happening typically. Now this is going to be a low pressure. We're not going to get a bunch of overspray blowing everywhere, but it's good to be safe. But on a car, you want to make sure that you cover everything up, that you're not spraying, because the overspray from the paint, all the paint that's floating around in the air, wants to land and stick to everything, right? So what I'm trying to do is eliminate any spots where the paint is going to go under the tape and paper. Okay, so I seal up all my edges. And the other thing we're trying to eliminate is dust coming out while we're spraying. We don't want dust coming off of whatever's underneath the tape to blow into whatever we're painting. So it's kind of a dual purpose: seal it up from paint getting in and keeping dust from coming out. Okay, so it's good to have it to get into, just seal everything off and keep anything from flopping around, because what happens all the time is somebody goes to spray it and they didn't tape down the paper and it flops into whatever they're spraying. Okay, so and we're going to do the same thing for each of the sections. Okay, it's just repeated. Okay, and we don't reuse the paper in between. We rip it all off and start fresh. We always want to try to use, I know it seems wasteful if this stuff didn't get paint on it, but to keep everything clean, we always use clean paper. Otherwise, overspray and dust comes off of the paper back into whatever we're trying to spray. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a quick clean with a little bit of degreaser. Now I want to be careful I don't soak the paper or the tape with any kind of solvent. I'm just going to do a quick clean, and then we'll mix up a little bit of black and a touch-up gun, and we'll start doing the design. All right, so I think the first one we're going to do is the bubbles with the circle. So I cut out one larger one right before I came in. So I got 4 different sizes. I usually don't do them that large, but we'll give it a try. All right, and what I'm thinking is we'll do it in this direction. I think I'm going to start small and go large in this area. So it just depends on how you want to orient your panel, and what you want to be the top or the bottom is going to kind of dictate some of the patterns that you do. All right, so we've got these. All right, hopefully the fans aren't too loud. I just need a little ventilation in here to pull up the fumes. All right, so bubbles. I have a little piece of paper next to me that I'm going to do a little quick practice on. Now always, before you do your actual panel, you need to practice your design that you're going to do before you put it on here, because a lot of times you only have one shot at this. And let's say you practiced on a Monday and you come in, you think you're ready to go on a Wednesday. practice again, just because the gun might be different, the weather's different, everything, you know, you might have forgotten what you're doing. So always practice right before you put it on your panel. That way you eliminate a lot of problems. All right, now I've got the touch-up gun. So this is just the Iwata. I think it's got a .8 tip in there, and I've got a little black base coat mixed up in there. So for setup on this, usually got a pretty low air pressure. Now for the controls, and I'm going to mess with the air a little bit anyway. So for the controls, this is your top control, this is your fan, so this dictates how wide the spray pattern is. For this one, I turn it all the way to the right. So I turn it clockwise all the way until it stops. That'll give us our smallest pattern. The one below it is our material. I'm going to turn that all the way in. Okay, so it's going to basically shut off all the material from being put out of the gun. And then we're keeping our air low so that when I come over here and start practicing on my paper, I'm going to add a little bit of air. Okay, just a little bit. Now with the air, what you're looking for is you don't want so much that it's going to blow paint everywhere, right? You don't want too high of an air pressure that it's going to blow everywhere, but you also don't want too low that it's not going to break up and atomize the paint. Okay, so if it goes on kind of speckly and lumpy, it probably needs more air. Okay, if the paint's going everywhere, I'm going to tell you to turn down the air pressure. Okay, so you got to learn by ear what you're looking for. Okay, so once I think I'm close with the air, my material, I'm gonna keep the fan closed all the way so it's as small as possible. And I'm just gonna back out the material a little bit, and you'll start seeing a little bit of black show up. Okay, all we want is a little bit. I don't want a bunch coming out at once, just a little bit in a small pattern. Okay, with other designs you're going to go bigger or put out more paint. For what we're doing at the beginning here, you want it small and a very small amount of paint with low air pressure. So you can hear the air. Very small. Okay, perfect. Now for practice, let's just take a circle here. And one of the keys is you want to keep this down up against the whatever you're painting so the paint doesn't go underneath it, which can be a little difficult, right? On metal it's a little bit easier, but on paper not so much. So you want to make sure you hold it against there, and all you're going to do is go around the perimeter, and I'm mainly aiming at the paper stencil, not what's underneath it. Okay, so you can start on the stencil if you need to. And you can see most of it sprayed on the stencil itself, right? And we come in with another one, and so on and so forth, right? And you can make them as light or as dark as you want. It's totally up to you. But you want to leave a little bit of dark and a little bit of a highlight. You don't want it completely filled in, right? If you completely fill it in, you just have a dot. That's not what we're going for, okay? So as I come over here to the panel, I want to make them kind of random and seem like they're free-flowing, right? So I'm just going to come up here. I'm going to start at the top. Like I said, I'm going to have the bigger ones at the top, but they'll be kind of mixed in there. So just wherever you want. Oh, let me clean it first. So let me get the towel. All right, so before I just want to remember using a little bit of degreaser, and I'm just going to spray it on the towel so I don't get it all over the place, and just give it a quick wipe. All right, and then use the dry side to dry it off. That just gets any of our fingerprints off. It helps with adhesion. All right, check it. Got a little bit of fuzz right there. All right, make sure that's completely dry. You can blow it dry if you need to. All right, and then we're ready to go. So put your piece up there. Make sure you hold it down. And also kind of think about where your light source is. You want the shading on one side or the other, or you don't really care. It's up to you. Let's just see how it goes. All right, so let's go. Oh, I didn't even do the biggest one. That's funny. So here's the biggest one. Let's see what that wants to do. Okay. And you can start overlapping. Just adds a little bit of dimension to it. Okay. Kind of cool so far. So these exercises with the stencils and all the custom painting really helps you with gun control, right? If you can't control the trigger on your gun and put it exactly where you want it to go, you're gonna have trouble when you start spraying cars, not being able to control your gun that well, okay? So good practice. Let's mix it up a little bit. And the small ones are hard to do a little bit of shading just because they're so small. Let's go to the second size here. Just mix it up, make it however you want it to look. Really no right or wrong. Okay. And it dries very quickly, so there's not too much chance of it smearing. But if it's a little bit cooler, today it's like almost 100 degrees out, so it's drying really quickly. Just keep in mind though, if it's a slow drying paint or it's cold out, you might need to wait a couple seconds in between to let it dry before you add more. Right, you just keep on adding whatever you think is right, whatever your look that you're going for. Mix up the sizes, do some overlaps. Basically, you stop when you like what you're seeing, right? As little or as much as you want. Looking pretty good. Right. Not bad. A couple little smears. Not too worried about it. I'm going to take care of those. All right. Step back, look at it. If you like it, stop. If you need a little something else in there, add it. All right. All right, that looks good. So that's basically how we do the bubbles, right? So just using some circle templates. Light pressure, you don't want to put on too much. And you can, like, as you get more advanced, you can do different colors for the bubbles, right? So that under the candy it shows up as different colors. So the sky's the limit, whatever your imagination comes up with. All right, so that we're going to let that sit for a couple minutes, and I'm going to come back unmask, and I'm going to remask another spot.